Hi, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to join us today for our discussion on bridging the gap between Adobe AEM and Viva Vault. After some introductions, we will outline some integration and automation issues companies face between authoring and compliance in their marketing ecosystem. We'll be discussing two good solutions, a connector and an integration and automation platform. We'll talk about the value of each, how they differ, and a bit about the options in the market currently. Before I get started, I want to remind everyone that we will be recording today's session and sending it to anyone who has registered along with today's deck, as well as a fact sheet on our two solutions for you to share with your team. We expect today's session to run about 45 minutes, probably the full hour with questions, so we're going to get started here. To formally introduce ourselves, my name is Dimitri, and I am the sales director here at Expedient Digital, and will be moderating today's event. Be sure to submit any questions you have via the chat or the Q&A. We'll try and cover them as we go along, but we'll also leave time at the end. Presenting today, we have Kevin, our Director of Product, who comes to us with a wealth of knowledge from Viva, where he spent 5 years working with Vault PromoMass and their DAM. We also have Rohit, our Director of Product Development, who will take you through a short demo and can answer just about any questions regarding Adobe AEM and our products. We also have Greg, our Chief Growth Officer, who at the end is going to talk about how we can help you analyze your metrics and help create a business case to take back to your team to help analyze kind of some of the analytics around these issues that you're seeing and how we can help. So without further ado, I guess I'll turn it over to our presentation team. Why don't you guys get it kicked off?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin Liggett. So I think one of the items that we're talking about today is why are we here? Why are we having this webinar? Typically, the types of problems that we're seeing from customers and from other organizations is how do they actually go about getting content out here? What are the objectives that they want to accomplish? They want to be able to get items to time to market faster. They want to be able to get a lot of different things sorted out through systems and achieving faster time to market, getting product and compliant content out into the sales teams as quickly as possible. So we're really heavily focused on listening and hearing these things. My time, I spent just over 4.5 years at Viva. And that time I spent at Viva, these are very, very consistent messages that we're hearing at Viva. I'm hearing the same messages here at Expedient as well. And if we start talking about what these items are, like how do we talk about what the current challenges are? These are our objectives and what we find interesting and we'd like to be going out and doing. But what sort of reasons or challenges do we see as to why this can become a problem? I mean, with the global pandemic, digital content growth has grown simply out of necessity. There hasn't been a particular shift. It's always been growing along, but because you can't go and see people face to face, digital content has been absolutely hardly required. Demand for that is highly increased. And we need to make sure that content remains in a compliant state. There's been a lot of work where people have manually created one-off pieces of content. It's a one-time website, it's a one-time IBA reuse, and the opportunity to go and use content over in different markets in an omni-channel type of approach has really not really been there because the infrastructure and the way things are putting in place has been very difficult to do that. We're hearing a lot of information from everybody about talking about modular content. It's the next big thing. Definitely there's a lot of capabilities that we kind of have already today, and we'll talk a bit about those, and we'll talk about sort of where that's going. There's a lot of interest in this particular space. Now, from the reason why we have confusion, why having effective omni-channel content that's reusable across different areas is because of fragmentation. There is a great deal of assets. Different systems use different tools, and they all need, every authoring tool out there has got a DAM basically built into it. Every tool has got the ability to go and manage these individual assets because they need to put it inside of their framework so that they can go and display that content. So there's going to be fragmentation, and that's just the nature of the work that we do. And we're really trying to focus on why are people going out and continuing to code brand new sites every time? Why can't we go out and author it or populate a template or use some other type of framework to drive that content, as opposed to going out and manually creating it manually each individual time? So this is a slightly different view in what those challenges kind of look like. And as we've done more and more analysis into this, the two areas that I'm going to sort of focus on this slide is all the effort that people put in, the cost, the time, the effort. A lot of it is put into content creation, about 60% of that. But a lot of that content isn't reused. It's being custom one-off done. There's not really an economies of scale or opportunity to reuse some of that content or to do it in a templated type of fashion. So that becomes much more difficult and much more costly because you're basically creating this content from scratch every time. And then another portion of it, and this is also a really big important part, is preparing that content to go through a regulatory approval process inside of Vault PromoMats is complicated. You have to get the distribution packages put together the right way. You have to make sure all the assets are put into place. You have to make sure that the preview is viewable and that the users can go and perform an MLR review on it and then provide that feedback. So all those types of packaging and having everything all put together is a really complicated item. And those are two areas that are in particular are important. Now, why would people go out and how do you go around solving these types of problems? There's a number of ways that you can go out and try to do this. There's point solutions. So the downside to a point solution is you're going to have just another system that you've got to work with, another system that you're going to have people log into, another system that you're going to have to try, and I say try to sync your assets across. And that can be pretty complicated. It's another standalone environment that's going to have some challenges. And then you can look at also like a simple connector. Connectors are great. It's a good, nice way to share assets across multiple systems. It may not do other automation items for you, and that can be a bit of a challenge, but at least it gets you to a point where you've got some communication between the two different systems, or more than two different systems, actually. And there's a lot of customers, a lot of organizations that are looking at building out sort of a custom solution for this. So in-house IT organization will build out a way to communicate with multiple systems. Now, while this can work, it is going to be quite time consuming. It's going to take potentially years to put it together, or a year or more to put it together. Your integration points and your updates and your maintenance are going to be pretty costly over time. And really, how are you going to engineer it in such a way that the next best technology that we don't even know about today, that's going to be the way that communication is done with HCPs in 2 years or 3 years, is it going to be able to handle that? So the other option, and this is part of why we're having this webinar today, is talking about an integration and automation platform. It just so happens that we have one of those here at Expedient. So I'm going to talk a little bit up front about the basic connector. So this talks a bit about the connector type of solution that we talked about in 2 slides ago. And what the connector does in a very simple way is it allows you to share content between Vault PromoMats and AEM. So content can come from Vault and go into AEM, and content from AEM can go back into Vault. This becomes really useful if you have some content that's assets or imagery or whatever you happen to have inside of Vault that you want used in AEM. So that comes into AEM, it's then synced into AEM, those assets are synced. And then when we go out and we build out a new particular item, so perhaps it's an approved email, you're putting an email together, we can package that back up and send it back over to Vault PromoMats for the MLR process. What's really interesting in our case is the MLR prep page, that page level MLR prep that we can do with our connector becomes quite useful in that you're packaging that content back into PromoMats in a way that can be consumed through the MLR process. That makes it a little bit cleaner, a little bit easier, and probably a little bit better than any of the other connectors that are out there in the market today. On top of our basic connector, we actually have our platform solution. And this platform talks at a much deeper level. We can actually go out and provide omni-channel capabilities. So we can provide flexibility for modular content as well. So you can get content that is much more robust. Take an entire IVA and have that created in AEM and push through to Vault PromoMats complete in its distribution package format with all the different binders, the binder that's required, and all that content pushed over into Vault PromoMats for approval, which is a much cleaner and much more automated solution. And we provide a lot more technology that sits on top of this. The templating capabilities are there to make your websites and your IVAs much easier to go and work with. And basically, you can save all sorts of time and effort by taking advantage of this type of technology. When we get into a bit of a functional comparison between what can you do with a connector and what does an integration automation platform do, this slide actually describes that fairly well. The connector provides single page assets. It's very simple. We provide syncing between the systems, and that's fantastic. When we get into integration automation platform capabilities, the author can see things like the MLR comments. So if someone goes out and does a review on a particular piece of content and wants a change made, they can put that annotation directly inside of Vault PromoMats. That annotation then gets sent over to the XP Connect platform, which we can then open that up and see what that content, that comment is, so we can go and make some changes. Instead of however it's done today, which there could be a rep or someone that works inside of the HCP, inside of the pharmaceutical that has to contact the agency and try to communicate that way. If it's done by email, very complicated, potentially error prone. But this way we have an automatic system that sort of manages content back and forth between the environments. And of course, on the multi-channel authoring capability, this is where our omni-channel capabilities come into play, and also where modular content can start coming into really good use for our customers. So, I mean, when we look back at some of the big rocks, some of the big challenges that are kind of out there, how do you get access to all of the approved assets with the ability to simplify the creation of modules? That's really complicated. It's hard to get these things to happen. How do we go about and eliminate the multiple authoring tools, eliminate those times when people are essentially creating one-off content over and over again? And not having the opportunity to go out and reuse the content you've got inside of your system? How do you have that framework and provide a simple way of giving a summary of the website through our XP generator? So you have a website, then you want to see what it looks like on a template, on a desktop computer, or from a mobile phone, or from a tablet. How do you package that up and send it over? There are organizations today where project managers are grabbing screenshots of these things, doing that over and over again, putting it into a PDF file and sending that over. We can automate a lot of these types of capabilities already for our customers. And then how do you actually get to that point? Because there's been more and more demands to get all of the content, all of the assets inside of PromoMats, so that the PromoMats can work with it and then push it onto the next channel that it needs to go to. How do you get all that stuff packaged up so that it's packaged correctly? And we have a lot of automation tools that will just basically do that for you. Now, I think I've probably talked enough at this point in time, so I'm going to hand it over to Rohit, who's going to walk us through a bit of a demonstration to show us what some of these tools are.
All right, thanks, Kevin. Hey, everyone. Hopefully everyone's doing well today. We're excited to have you join us for the demo. Let me get started by sharing my screen here. You guys should see my Viva Vault screen at this point. So we're going to start in Viva Vault, and we're going to show you the bidirectional connectivity that you get with the connector. And then also the added functionality that you see or that you get with the integration, the platform. So if we start with this asset, what I'm going to do is I'm going to approve this asset for use. As soon as this asset is approved in Viva, we're acting like Viva is the single source of truth in this case. So as soon as this asset is approved in Viva, it's synced over to AEM, so your AEM authors can start working with that asset. We're then going to use that asset in a piece of modular content. We'll then send that modular content over for review and approval in Vault. Once that modular content is ready, we're going to then use that modular content across multiple channels. So we're going to use it on a web page, we're going to use it in an email, we'll use it on an IVA slide, and then we'll send each of those over for review and approval to Vault as well. So let's take this asset. It's an efficacy chart. Right now, it's sitting in a waiting librarian approval status. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to act as the librarian, and I'm going to approve it for use. So at this point, once it's approved for use, you can sync this asset over to your AEM DAM. The way you do that with just the connector is that you'd manually trigger a web action. So I'm going to trigger this web action, and it's on its way over to AEM now. If you have the full integration, the XP Connect platform, this is automatic. So the way it's done is on that state change where it goes from awaiting librarian approval to approved for use, there's a webhook that's set up that's listening for that state change, and that webhook calls a service that automatically syncs that asset over. There's also another way it can be done. This is the push method, right? Some of our clients prefer to have more control over when their assets are synced, when the transactions to Viva actually happen. So for that, we can also set up a scheduled service, and that scheduled service runs every X number of hours, and it'll pull all the assets over that have been approved in those last few hours. So either push or pull, whichever way you want to do it, that's the solution we'd set up for you. So now that we've synced this asset over, let's toggle over to the AEM DAM. I'm going to give my folder a quick refresh. And there's my asset. So we just synced this asset over from Vault to AEM. So it's now available for my AEM authors to start using. So what I'm going to do next is I have this content fragment that I've created. I want to create a piece of modular content, and then I'm going to use that across channels. So my modular content is going to be a piece of claim text. So I have this claim text in there already, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this chart that I just synced over into this modular content. And I'll say select, and there we go. Now my modular content includes the claim text and the supporting chart. So I'm going to look it over. Everything looks good, and I will save it. All right, so now we've got my modular content ready. So once your modular content is ready, it's really easy to sync this over to the Vault. So all you have to do is select your modular content that you want to sync over, and we give you this XP Connect menu item up top. So you select the XP Connect menu item, pick the Send to Viva Vault option, and then you pick your workflow. Now, normally in a production environment, if you're only communicating with a single vault, then you'd only have one workflow in here, and it would be defaulted in. So all your users have to do is click the Start Workflow button. So you're going to kick off the workflow, and that's it. So your modular content is now on its way over to the Vault for review and approval. So while that's going over, we're now going to take this modular content and we're going to start using it across multiple channels, right? So let's look at a web page first. So I'm going to open my sample web page. It's a pretty standard web page. It's got some a menu up top. It's got background imagery. It's got a call to action, some text, and then it's got ISI down at the bottom. So I'm going to edit my web page, and what I have here is I have this section where I want to insert my modular content. So I'm going to go to content fragments, pick this one that I just edited, and I'm going to drag and drop it here. And what you'll see is when that modular content gets inserted into this page, it inherits its styling from the channel that it's being inserted into, the page that it's being used on. When we created the modular content, it was basically just the text and the image. Now you can see the size has been adapted to the page that it's on. The text color has changed, the font has changed. So all of that styling can be inherited from the channel that it's being placed into. All right, so I look at my web page, make sure everything looks good, and then the process to send this over to Vault is the same. You have this XP Connect menu item up top. You're going to click the Send to Vault button, and then you're going to pick your workflow and say Start. And this is now on its way over to Vault. So while that's going over, let's pick another channel, right? So we looked at a web page. Let's look at an email next. So I'm going to open a sample email that I have set up. Again, it's a pretty standard email format. I've got some header information with some links up top. I've got the recipient and some information that I want to send them. Here's some links that I want to direct them to. So I'm going to edit it. And again, here, this is where I want to place my modular content for the information that I'm sending them. So I'm going to drag and drop it on here again, preview it, and you'll see that now again the styling is applied based on my email channel. So the font is a different color, the size is a little different. So you can do that. You can create your modular content, and then as you use it across channels, you can style it differently. So your content is the same. The styling just looks consistent with the channel it's placed into. All right, so we've got my email set up. Same thing again. I'm going to click the XP Connect menu option, pick my Send to Viva Vault, select the workflow, and say Start. And this is really a very manual process when you're doing it without this tool, right? Because you have to export it from one system, you have to go to the other system, you have to import that document into Viva, you have to then manually key in all the metadata, you have to create the distribution package or the assets file that's needed for that asset that you're trying to send over. And then all of those things have to be loaded into Vault. So this tool is doing all that for you behind the scenes just by clicking this one button saying Send to Viva Vault. So that's where you gain your productivity increase, right? Is you're doing a lot less manual work to get it from one system into the other. All right, so now we've done the email. Let's look at the IVA next. So I've got this IVA set up, and it's based on our XP Omnichannel framework. Kevin mentioned it in his initial conversation. So what the Omnichannel framework is it's a set of templates and components that you get along with the XP Connect platform. It really is a starter kit for your emails and IVAs. What it lets you do is come up to speed really quick on using or setting up your IVA presentations and slides or your email templates and fragments. Because we provide the framework for that. So all you're really doing is applying your branding information to it and then applying your content when you create the slides. But it's very fast, very efficient to get up and running with your IVAs and your FTEs. So this is my presentation. Here's all the slides that are contained in that presentation. We're going to look at this one slide in particular. So I've got this this slide, and it's so what the framework does is that the slide templates are already in the iPad format for the IREP app. You've got your menu available. You've got space for your logo. You've got all of these links down at the bottom. You've got an ISI widget that shows up. So really, what you're doing is populating your content, and you're ready to go with your slides. So for this slide, I've got all my text and image objects set up. I want to insert my modular content into this area here. So I'm going to go content fragments, drag and drop again, same process, preview, make sure everything looks good. Yes, I like the way my slide looks. And then I'm going to send it across, pick my workflow and say start. And now my slide is on its way over. Now, in this case, I only sent one slide, which you can do with either the framework or the connector. What you can do with the framework that you can't with the connector is you can also send over entire presentation. So instead of clicking the XP Connect menu and saying send to Vault on the single slide, I can select my presentation and click the XP Connect and do the same thing. And what that'll do is it'll send the entire presentation. So it'll send all of these slides along with their distribution packages that are needed for CRM and the IRAP app. But then it'll also send over the presentation information. So the presentation will get created as a binder in Viva, and then all of these slides will get added into the presentation in the order that they're in over here. So you're essentially creating your IVA in Viva with all the necessary metadata and distribution packages, and it's ready to go. So it saves a huge amount of manual effort that's otherwise needed in getting this over into the Vault. All right, so we've seen creating a piece of modular content. We've then looked at using that modular content in a web page, in an email, and then on an IVA slide. So let's toggle back over to Vault, and I'm going to go to my library. And here we go. Here's all the information that showed up. So this is the modular content that we sent over. This is my web page. This is the email, and then this is the IVA slide. So all of my assets showed over. So let's look at the web page first. So I've synced the web page over in tablet mode. So one thing you can do is when you're syncing your documents over, so when you're sending web pages over, you can choose what format you want to send it over in. So if you want to send it over in desktop mode or tablet mode or mobile or more than one of those, right? Whatever your MLR reviewers need to see, you can sync over those particular renditions. All of the metadata that I want to be synced over is sent over as well. And then the distribution package rendition is included as well. So not only do your MLR reviewers get the PDF view, they also get the full distribution package, which is the HTML and all of the assets that are included in this web page. The other thing we also do is if there's assets that you're using on this web page that came from Viva, that was synced to AEM from Viva, we're aware of the IDs for those assets. So when the document is sent over, if there's any assets that are used on the document that came from Viva, we'll automatically link those as component assets. So in this case, because we had synced the chart over to begin with, you'll see that the chart is now linked as a component asset. All right, so that's the web page. Let's look at the email next. So there's the email. This is the Viva rendition for the email. So you'll see that there's page breaks in there. And then along with the email, we'll sync over all the metadata. The email, of course, is synced over in HTML format. And then we'll have the assets.zip included as well. So this is needed for the CRM once the email is approved and is ready to send out. And then let's look at the slide next. There's the slide. So again, you'll see that our slide came over as a PDF. All of the metadata for the slide came over. The CLM properties can also be set on the AEM side. So then the CLM properties are sent over along with the slide and the presentation. And then they flow through all the way through to CRM and then to the IRAP app. And then, of course, the rendition is included, the distribution package that is then sent over ultimately to the IRAP app and used in the IRAP app to display that slide. All right, so that's the 3 channels that we use the modular content in and then sent over. One more thing I wanted to talk about is annotations. So once your documents have been sent over and your MLR reviewers start reviewing them, if there's any comments that are added, right? So I'm going to act as the MLR reviewer for a second here, and I'm going to annotate this document. And I'm going to say something like this: color is wrong. and needs to be changed. So if I do that, and if I annotate this document, normally what we'd need to do is your document champion would need to download this from Viva, send it to your AEM authors, and then your AEM authors would need to go look at it in email or something like that, and then they'd need to make whatever changes were requested. So instead, what we do is we give your AEM authors an option to look at the annotated document in AEM itself. So if we go back to my document that I had sent over, there it is, and I pick the XP Connect menu item, you'll see a Viva Annotations menu option. So if you click on the Viva Annotations menu option, you'll see this version 0.1 that we just sent over. I click on it, and it'll download the annotated document, the annotated PDF to my desktop. I open it, and it'll show me this PDF with the annotations that the MLR reviewer added. So again, one click, and you're able to see what changes the MLR reviewers have requested, and then they're right in AEM, so they can go make those changes right away and resubmit it so that it goes over as a version 0.2. So seamless, no manual effort required, and they're able to see and make the changes that the MLR reviewers requested in Viva. All right, so I think that's all I wanted to show you today, how seamless the bidirectional integration is. It allows you to sync your assets and your documents back and forth between the two systems, along with metadata and distribution packages that are needed. All right, so I'm going to hand it back to Kevin.
Great, thanks a lot, Rohit. That was really helpful. We're going to talk a little bit about some of those items, because you look at that demo and it seems, well, that doesn't look like there's a whole lot of things happening there. But the part that's really kind of important is when we talk about that user experience and the improvement and the cost reduction and the speed to content creation, because we've got those assets inside of Viva, they're coming over into our AEM environment. When we send that content back into Vault PromoMats, if we're sending that through a workflow or into however you can connect it to multiple vaults if you need to as well, because that content is going back into PromoMats, it's coming there ready to go. It's the distribution package is there. And I don't know how many people on the call have actually had to deal with distribution packages. If you haven't, please talk to someone inside your organization and sort of find out what the manual effort is that's involved in doing that. We do it with a click, select an item and press submit. And there you go, it's done. It just shows up inside of Vault with the metadata, with the binder structure, with all that content all together. But for someone to actually go out and do that through the UI is a very complicated process. It will take a long time to do it. It's also potentially error prone. So we're also increasing our time to market by having this content come over in one shot. You don't have to go and redo it afterwards unless there's actually a change, versus someone manually uploading the content and potentially doing it wrong or missing something or not quite getting the content together. So the user experience is definitely better for both the AEM users and for the Viva MLR users as well, because there's getting content that's compliant, that is correct, at least assembled correctly, and then they can do the proper MLR review on it. Overall, as you can tell, like, you're going to save a lot of time and effort by having the system automatically do these updates for you, as opposed to someone having to package it up manually. So from a high level perspective, we've got this overall life cycle for content that comes into the system. And then we play in these different areas. We have our basic connector, which is a bit of a thinner line. It does a lot of things, doesn't quite do everything. And then we have our XP Connect platform, which actually gives a full spectrum of capabilities across the entire life cycle. And with our XP connector, we also have what we call XP Generator. XP Generator is what was used to actually generate those individual website pages, which is quite useful to see. And then, of course, the XP Omnichannel Framework also ties into things as well, which is what was used to generate the IVAs. Something that you need to sort of keep into consideration is you don't have to go out and do your email, your website and your IVAs all at once, you can start off with something smaller, get something up and running quickly, start sealing that value, that capability that starts coming out with the system, and then grow from there a little bit. For the next 2 slides, I'm going to hand it over to Greg, who will talk a little bit more about the detail and where we see users getting a lot of content and value from the system. Greg?
Thank you, Kevin. So let's talk about kind of extend the value conversation. And one of the things we find, and it's pretty typical with every client, we haven't seen anybody yet that measures everything and measures it well. It's a highly fragmented environment, right? And you've got a lot of different silos, and trying to understand the data between those is not trivial. And yeah, you can get some good data, some decent data out of Viva, and yes, you can get some decent data out of Adobe, but then to connect the two together is a real challenge. That's something that we're beginning to do. We've got all the hooks into the system to start capturing all of the analytics to get to the point. I mean, our vision and goal for this is really that we're going to get to the point that for every client, we'll be able to measure clearly that value once we do a baseline. Right? And that value can get portrayed in many different ways. But making sure that the organization has full visibility into what is the value, and more importantly, frankly, than just the value, it's the effort across all of these silos to get this work done. And that's something that a lot of people don't really have that kind of data internally. So what we're seeing, and let me tell you a little bit of where this is coming from. So this data, when every client, we go in and do a baseline, and we try to, and we're capturing varying levels of detail based on what's available. And that baseline helps us establish kind of what roughly that current state is. And then we're starting to look at, we've done a series of benchmarks on each one of these major automation areas. We've also done this with clients, and we're starting to get some data out of clients. So that's why you're seeing fairly broad ranges here right now in this data. But generally speaking, what we're seeing in XP Connect Basic, which is really just the basic connector, is roughly about a 10% improvement. And it can go as high as maybe 15. In some things for MLR package build, it can go a little higher, right? That can save a fair amount of time. But it's the automation steps that really is driving most of the time and cost savings. It's not really the integration. It helps, but it's not the major source of the improvements. And on the platform side, we're seeing, significant improvements in less assets. So one of the things that we see a lot is the number of assets that are all one-off. And we have clients where they're, frankly, 80 to 90% of their assets are literally one-off assets, used once, used for one channel, one piece of content, never to be seen again, never to be used again. So the thing we're beginning to see as people deploy this is that one-off content starting to become less and less. And we're starting to get some reuse. So that's helping. That's helping on the time side. And then content leverage, again, that's coming from kind of the reuse side. The authoring, as opposed to custom building, we're now authoring. And that's huge. That's a really significant benefit. And couple that with all the other elements of this, and you get some big numbers there. And that's the biggest part of this pie relative to the scope and relative to the time. The MLR package build, I mean, literally that's one click, and you can configure XP Generator to do, whether it's multi-page or the entire site. So that's literally a click, as opposed to manually snagging and pasting and creating and pulling all the source documents, source files together, packaging all that up. So it's a huge time savings. And then the production package build is significant, especially when it comes to IVAs, to a lesser extent with the other channels. But for IVAs, that's a big improvement. And then support, you're trying to make tweaks and changes to one of the, let's just take an IVA as an example. If I've custom coded that thing, which most of them are, then suddenly that's a big deal. changes take a lot of time, take a lot of effort, and a lot of cost, right? So, and just to put it in perspective on the IVA side, we're seeing, generally from kind of the baseline where companies are building these from scratch, $20,000 a page kind of on average. And doing this through the authoring side and using the authoring and some modular content, we're seeing that number drop as low as 6,000 a page. So it's very significant. Can you go to the next one? So what we can do, and we're open to doing this, frankly, at no cost for you guys, is help you craft a business case. And you say, well, come on, that's a big effort. And the answer is, it is not an insignificant effort. We've got a pretty standard data collection template that if you can give us the data, right, we can do analysis, have a few interviews, and look at, based on the data we've got from some other situations, we can come up with a pretty good view of what the benefits are going to be, what the savings might look like, what the time improvements might look like, and get you something in a fairly short time frame. So we're open to doing that. You just kind of reach back to us and let us know, and we can get that process started. Pretty straightforward process. With that, let me turn it back, and any questions, we can answer those now.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Yeah, we didn't get any questions throughout the presentation, so please, if anybody has any questions now, send them through. We appreciate your time so far. I hope you guys found this presentation useful. Again, my name is Dimitri. I'm the sales director here. I'm usually the first point of contact. So if you have any questions after this webinar or sometime in the future, feel free to shoot me an email, and I will be following up with everybody with, again, a copy of the deck, a presentation, and then a fact sheet on our products to help share with your team, just to pass along this information. All right. Well, no more questions are coming through, so I guess we can close it off today. Thank you for everybody who joined early in the morning. I know we tried to open this up to accommodate some EU partners early in the morning for those who are in different time zones. So we appreciate the time, and hope you all have a great day and a great weekend.
Excellent. Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.